All right, with that and our opening music, it's live time, and here we are for OEGlobal Live, and this is our monthly series of shows that we're doing leading up to the OEGlobal 2024 conference that's happening in Brisbane, and we have this great audience, this great group of people in our studio here to talk about the work they do in Australia and give some context for people who, don't know what's going on in Australia, and we have like the perfect people here who have experience. We just want to hear about the work that they do and the kind of interest that they have. So we'll do a few rounds of introduction. I'll ask everybody to introduce themselves, and I'm going to start first with my colleague Marcela Morales, who's our co-director at OEGlobal. So hello, Marcela. How are you tonight?
Tonight here in Austin, Texas. I'm super excited to be part of this conversation and really just tagging along and excited to hear what everybody's going to be sharing with us. So, as Alan said, I'm interim co-executive director of Open Education Global, and we're super excited to be preparing the OE Global Conference with many of your colleagues, in this case, Adrian, the conference OE Global at the end of the year. So super excited to be here, and I don't want to take any time. I want to listen from you. So thank you very much for joining us.
Excellent. And I want to bring on now. Well, I'm not going to tell people when to talk as soon as we get in our conversation, but just to hear from Adrian Stagg from University of Southern Queensland, who's our conference co-chair. And just maybe, Adrian, give us a little bit of highlights of what's going on in the last month since our first show.
Of course, Alan. It's been really quite busy over the last month. So the reviews are winding down. We're just getting the last of those through at the moment. And we're down to, I think we're down to single digits reviews outstanding at the moment. Really
I think sorry, Adrian, your audio is a little bit I can't hear you too clearly, but I'm really sorry about that because right before the show you sounded perfect, and we'll give Adrian a few seconds to fiddle with his devices. And like we say, technology happens. It usually does unexpected things, and see if that makes a difference, Adrian.
I've just changed the settings. How's that?
No, we're not getting. So we'll be okay, and we'll come back if that's okay. And I'll just, because we had this fantastic panel of educators and people from various institutions, and I'll just start and ask Janet to say hello. Tell us where you are, and of course who you work for, and what you're doing in open education.
Was that for me?
Yeah, I'm calling on you.
Yeah, so my name's Janet Catterall. I'm the Senior Project Officer at Open Access Australasia, which is the sort of premier open access advocacy organisation for Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand. So I'm actually speaking to you from Cairns in far north Queensland, which is the traditional country of the Gimoy Wullabura Yidinji people. So the word Gimoy means Cairns in Yidinji. So this is Cairns Gimoy, where I am today. We mostly focus on open access publications and open repositories and that kind of thing. Not so much. We haven't moved that much into the educational sphere yet in terms of open educational resources, but definitely something that our members have consistently flagged to be of interest. And so I'm really looking forward to this conversation, hearing what everyone has to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And next I'll ask Ash to say hello and let us know where you are and all the things that you do, which I know is a lot.
Yeah, all the things all the time. Hi everyone, I'm Ash Barber. I am 2.5 days into being the Call OER Collective Project Officer. For a much longer time, I've been a co-convener of the Open Educational Practice Special Interest Group, along with Jen and Adrian. So there's three-quarters of us here today. And I also am on the board of directors for the Open Education Conference as well. So interested in all of the open things that I can get my hands on, really. And I'm coming to you today from Ghana land in Adelaide.
Thank you so much, and it's great to have you here. And we're going to have a lot to bounce off of. And next, I'll ask Jen Hurley to say hello from, I would assume, down in Melbourne.
That's correct. Yep, coming from NAM. So I'm at RMIT University, and my day job is as I lead the open publishing team in the library, and as Ash mentioned, I'm also one of the co-conveners for the OEP SIG with Adrian and Stephen Chang as well. So I'm leading the research agenda for the OEP SIG, and so that's my passion really in my work. That's my passion, is open.
That's excellent, and you've shared about the organization, and you acronymed it, and I think it's really fascinating. It talks a lot about the collaboration in Australia, and it's a great. Since we started planning this conference, I've been a regular visitor to the site, and really commend all the work that you're doing to draw the open educators in Australia together. So. Next, how about Katya, who is joining us from the place that she will tell us. And she just got back from an interesting place. I might put you on the spot for that.
Yes. Hi, Alan. Yes, I have just returned from Central Australia, from Uluru, which many of you may be familiar with. A spectacular part of Australia, which I highly recommend you visit when you do come to Australia. But I'm based in Brisbane, Meanjin, which will be the host of OEGlobal and is just as beautiful in its own way. I'm the Director of Strategy and Analytics at CALL, which is the Council of Australian University Librarians, where I work with Ash, who, as she mentioned, has just started with us. And we're very excited to have her. Ash is replacing Rani McLennan, who some of you may have come across as the previous Open Educational Resources Collective Project Officer here at CALL. And I'll talk a bit more about the collective later, but it's great to be here, and we look forward to seeing you all in Brisbane.
Fantastic, and definitely want to hear a lot more about CALL. And the more I read and research, the more I find like there's so much overlap between these organizations, again, which is spectacular to see. And now, welcome.
Yeah, we're all good friends. Yeah,
that's beautiful. And hello, V, and welcome. And let us know where you are from, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Hi, everyone. So my name is Vi Trung. I am a lecturer at in Information Studies at Jastud University. It's based in New South Wales, Australia. And my research interest that primarily is in open education and educational technology. So I'm based in Melbourne, so I'm mostly teaching online. And Melbourne norm. And my task is mostly about teaching and also research. So I'm teaching master and bachelor students in information management and library studies. And my research is, as you know, that open education mostly. And currently I'm also working with some Australian colleagues like Adrian here on our own project in Australia, and also with international colleagues, especially the Gojian people, on some other open education projects. And I think I will have, I might have some more time to talk about those projects later. But yes, that's about myself. And I'm really excited to be here today, listening from you and also sharing my research. And also can't wait to be in Brisbane in November this year.
Oh, thank you so much. And we definitely, Adrian promised that you would be able to talk to us about the state of research that you're doing, and excited to hear it. And hopefully now Adrian will have his voice back, because we all like hearing your voice.
Well, let's see. How does that sound?
Still kind of low, but maybe shout.
Well, how about that then? Can you hear better now?
Yes.
Righto. It's very, very rare that I get asked to speak up. But you were asking about the conference beforehand, and just by means of a quick update, we've got almost all the reviews in at the moment, and so that's really helpful, and a big thanks to everyone who has been busily reviewing. And on top of that, we're going to be meeting next week and getting the draft program up and running. So expect that on the website, you'll see a draft program in the next couple of weeks. Tied into that, if you are an author who has put in a submission and you're waiting to hear if you've been accepted, within the next 2 weeks, you'll get an email from us with the feedback from the reviewers and also letting you know if you're going to be accepted. The last thing to bear in mind is that we have all 3 keynotes locked in now. You would have seen that we did a presentation, I think about a month ago, where we mentioned our first keynote, and we'll do some other press releases around our second and third keynotes. And I think that when you read all 3 of them together, you're going to be just as excited as the committee in how everything kind of really works together really quite nicely. So that's basically everything that's happening at the moment and that's keeping us busy. And we'll have some more updates next month.
Excellent. Thank you. And we're looking forward in August to having hopefully all 3 keynotes, which include Penny Jane Burke, Simon Leacham, and Robert Dwayne McKellen. I hope I didn't mangle names too much, but I really want to commend the committee for this choice of keynotes. It's very exciting. So here we are. Let's talk about Open Education Australia. We've got open access. We've got lots of OER collectives. We got research. I certainly, maybe can we hear more from the call team about sort of how they work with in the library space, because we've been very proud that there's such a strong presence and leadership of librarians in organizing this conference.
Yeah, so I won't put Ash on the spot, just being in post for 2 days, but Ash, feel free to join in. Ash is on secondment from the University of South Australia as an academic librarian and has been involved in the CALL collective, on the OER collective from the other side, so she may have something to add from that perspective. But just a bit about CALL. So as you can see, CALL is the Council of Australian University Librarians, but we actually represent the 39 university libraries in Australia and the 8 libraries in New Zealand as well. So I guess you could say we're an international organisation. And the goals of CALL are to support our members on matters that are of importance across the sector. So we have a procurement service, a professional learning service, and 3 strategic enabling programs, open access, from decolonisation to indigenisation. And the third is open educational resources. So it is a very large part of our strategy. And one of the aspects of our OER strategic enabling program is the CALL OER collective. So this collective was an initiative of CALL's Creating a Modern Curriculum program, which was developed in order to facilitate the creation of OER across the network. And out of those 47 institutions, we now have 42 institutional members across Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand. So if you were to transfer that percentage to the North American context, it's quite significant. So 42 out of the 47 members, which is very exciting. So the goals of the CALL OER collective are threefold, with the aim of building capacity and capability across the network. Australia and New Zealand are a bit behind sort of the North American context, especially in terms of the adoption and creation of OER. So with the collective, we wanted to build infrastructure, capacity, and achieve tangible outcomes to move the OER agenda forward at a national level. Our second goal is to facilitate collaborative authoring and publishing of open textbooks in targeted priority disciplines with a preference for the inclusion of local and or Indigenous content. And thirdly, to allow member institutions to publish their own textbooks in disciplines of their choosing on the Pressbooks platform, which we provide. We've achieved quite a lot in our very short time. We've just moved from a pilot stage, and this is our first year in which we are a service. And during that time, we've had significant global reach with over 200,000 views of our textbooks, close to 25,000 downloads. And as I mentioned, the successful conclusion of the pilot and graduation to a service that we provide. And we also deliver a significant grants program with almost $100,000 in grants to support the OER textbook development program by the end of this year. We've published, I think, 35 books on the collective platform, with nearly 100 more in development. So that's quite significant in just over 2.5 years. Just to highlight, our #1 viewed book is the qualitative research from Monash University, which has received close to 50,000 views. And you can view all of our books on the collective platform. And I think we've got some links from the link that was put up earlier, where you can view all the books from the collective there. So that's a little bit about us there, but happy to discuss that further or take any questions. Or Ash, if there's anything you wanted to add from your perspective.
I'd say from my perspective of an academic librarian and therefore a beneficiary of Cole's work in this space, Cole is a trusted peak body organisation, and so having an organisation like that get behind open education has lent legitimacy to open education in Australia and New Zealand, and that's really helped to get institutions across the line who are maybe a little unsure, and if this is really worth their time, or if it really is kind of what our advocates have been saying it is. Having this peak body that they know and trust for everything else in the sector say, yes, this is something that we think is valuable, has really significantly helped. And I think that's why we've had this boom in the last couple of years.
I just wanted to add to that Ash's position is a full-time position that was developed to support the members of the collective, and that has gone from a 1-day-a-week position to 5 days a week, which is reflective of the growth in the collective. And we couldn't have done it without that position in place, first Rani and now Ash. Yeah.
And do you expect more growth? Are you looking at more institutions to line up? And
well, as I said, we've got 42 out of the 47, so yeah. I think we're close to 100%. But I guess one of the areas we do want to focus in is in advocacy, because I think we've kind of demonstrated that we've built up that capacity and capability, as Ash said, Cole's that respected advocacy network for universities and academics, but we've had a very active program in developing that capacity with communities of practice and workshops and guest speakers and the development of resources. So I think we're kind of almost, and Adrian from ASCILITE and Jen and Ash with her ASCILITE hat on might agree that we're almost at the point of critical mass now. I think that it's starting to take off. There's obviously still quite a lot of a way to go with that advocacy piece, but I think that's where we'd like to really invest our efforts moving forward around hopefully getting funding from the government, as a lot of North American institutions have been successful in doing. But I think we've got just about everybody on board on the collective. But working together in partnership with groups like ASCILITE and internationally with other groups to really develop that critical mass. Yeah.
No, I'm going to, sorry. Just for the acronym for people who aren't familiar, because they should be familiar with ASCILITE, can you tell us about that organization? Anybody?
Yeah, so ASCILITE, they don't ask me to remember every single letter of the acronym, but they support the integration of digital tools in education. So they're really into learning design and how do we bring education along with as digital tools emerge and progress, and how do we use that in pedagogy in really meaningful ways. And so open education, because open educational resources are typically born digital, it sort of fits nicely under that hat.
And mostly Australia, New Zealand, but it reaches further, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it's an Australasian organization, so not just Australia and New Zealand.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, who can I put on stage next? Let's hear about open access, Janet. And I mean, you said not much, but I mean, open access to publishing is very intertwined, to us with open education, and so it's very important that you're here to talk about the work that this organization does.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was just making notes this morning about the overlapping challenges and achievements in the open education field and in our area. There really is a very, very strong overlap and parallel between the two. So I'll just tell you a little bit about Open Access Australasia. So we have, we're completely membership driven. We have 32 universities that are members across Australia and Aotearoa. But we have outside of the university sector membership as well. So we have the Australian chapter of Creative Commons, for example, and the equivalent in Aotearoa, which is called Toa Toa, Aotearoa Commons. We have the Australian Library and Information Association. We have the National and State Libraries Australasia. We have Wikimedia, Australian Citizen Science, and the Australian Digital Alliance. So we're quite a varied community that reaches beyond the university sector. Our goals, our aims, our mission, we advocate for and raise awareness of open access across Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand. We do this by collaborating regionally and internationally. We have quite a strong international presence as well, to build capacity and expertise within the region, a lot of awareness raising, a lot of educative pieces. But we also do a lot of submissions to national government, to international submissions, in fact. So we advise on national, regional, and international strategies for not just open access, but open research. So we've broadened our remit over the years. We started in 2013 with specifically academic publishing, but now we encompass all of open research, which of course also includes open educational practice. So it's a big scope, and we're quite a small staff, but I think we do punch above our weight pretty well. So what we have been focusing on recently is we run webinars and workshops and education opportunities, but specifically we have an online course that's called OA 101. We've run that, I think, 5 times in the last couple of years. We've had over 500 people go through that course, and we're in the process right now of writing the second course, which is the advanced. We focused on the basics in the first course, but this second one will be bringing in open educational context to it as well. We're going a lot broader and a lot more in depth in OA 201. A big piece of work that we did recently, there was no overarching analysis of open access initiatives across the region. And most of the research was done in late 22, but in 23 we published like a landscape snapshot of what was going on across 4 different sectors. We looked at universities, but also at government, health, and non-profit, and published the report of what people were doing. Primarily, we focused on policies and guidelines and statements, but also who was running repositories, what were they collecting. And most of the universities, obviously, you wouldn't be surprised to know, have are running repositories, and pretty much all of them are collecting open educational resources as well as scholarly publications and non-traditional research outputs. So it's a very diverse range of things that are being collected in university repositories. What we found overall, though, was that there was a lot less open access engagement outside of the university sector, which perhaps isn't that surprising, although government was a really notable exception to that because they have a very strong presence in repositories for open publications and data. So that was quite interesting. And the other thing we looked at in that report was how far is the relationship between what institutions do in terms of their open access practice at an institutional level and what is actually published open in the broader picture. And we actually couldn't find a relationship between those two things. So just because you were doing a lot of open access promotion at your institution and you had a lot of initiatives on the go, didn't automatically translate into you having the highest open outputs. We use the Curtin Open Knowledge Initiative Open Access Dashboard to assess this. So that was kind of an interesting finding from the report. So what else do? We do the normal rounds of presentations and workshops. And like I said, we work internationally with groups like Coalition S or with Open Access 2020, with Spark in the US. And yeah, we just tried to get the Australasian perspective on open out onto the international stage as well. Which sometimes is a challenge because of the time difference, but we do what we can. Yeah, and so what's come up recently for us from our members is an interest in rights retention, an interest in looking more at open book publishing and open educational resources. And also people are starting to ask us, what are the implications for open access for generative AI? So we've got a lot of new things on the horizon that we're going to be speaking to in the near future.
Yeah, and I was going to drop the AI into the conversation, and just hearing about the Taylor and Rutledge falafel, because they basically are allowing their catalog to be used for AI training, and that's got to be. I'm really curious to hear some opinions on that. So maybe we'll come back to the AI if everybody's okay on that. I certainly like to hear the perspective, but we have both V and Jen who are in Melbourne. I'll ask V to come on. You're with Charles Sturt, and maybe because not everybody is familiar with Charles Sturt, but the university is all over Australia, right? So can you tell us a little bit about the university and then of course the research that you're doing?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Alan. So the university, we have quite a few campuses across Australia. Even we have a very newest campus in Melbourne as well. But my school is in Wagga Wagga, which means like it's located on the border between next to the border, not on the border. Yeah, between New South Wales and Victoria. And so the university, we have different study mode. It could be hybrid, it could be in person, or it could be online. But most of the students from my information studies, they are taking online and self-directed learning. And that's why I can be in Melbourne and teaching students across everywhere. They could be even overseas in Canada. We have quite a few students overseas as well. Yeah. And about myself, I completed my PhD in 2022 from Monash University. And my doctoral project was about investigating the factors affecting the development of institutional OER repository in Vietnam back in the day. And so I'm still in the process of publishing the last piece of my research findings. And next month, I will be going to Vietnam to attend the International Symposium on Global South Studies. And this supported by GoGN. So this is actually the first time that I attend a conference that's not centered around education or IT, as I have in the past. So it's interesting. I feel like my objective attending this conference is to raise awareness among people beyond the open education communities about open education movement, particularly OER, and also how libraries can play a very significant role in embracing this movement, because I believe this is a good way to promote the open education movement rather than attending events solely focused on open education where everyone already well aware of the concept. Yeah, so that's my intention. And currently I'm also working on different projects with Australian and international scholars from GoGN, from which is also focusing mostly in open education. And for your information, GoGN is the global OER graduate network. It is an international community of PhD candidates researching open education. You can be like research, like master of research as well, not necessarily only become, be a PhD candidate to be the member of GoGN. And this network is actually managed by the Open Education, the Open University in the UK. And people in the members of this network is supported by a network of over 200 experts and mentors around the world. And the network aims to support the open education research and also doctoral candidates, promote equity and inclusion, and develop openness in research process through different event collaborations and publication fellowships and scholarship. It's just like how I got the funding to attend the OEGlobal last year in Canada, so I got fully funded, and this year I get fully funded to attend the OEGlobal in Brisbane as well. So it's very it's a good network to be surrounded by good people and mentors, and it's also good funding as well. Yeah. So let's come to my project. So I am, as I mentioned, I'm working with Adrian, Ash, and Jane on a research about investigate the growth of Australasian open educational practices in here, and we also submitted a proposal in the OEGlobal this year, and we are really looking forward to hearing the result from the members. Apart from that, I won't take all of the time to talk about that project because I think that Adrian, Ash, and Jane gonna bring that up. And so apart from that, I'm also working with other GoGN members on a particular project about the dimensions of openness of AI in education. So this is something very interesting that we found because recently we heard about open education, we heard about open data, open science and all. But then recently, because of the ChatGPT, then we know about the open AI company. But then we think, what is the openness inside that open AI company? Because it doesn't feel like there is anything open. So that's why it motivates us to do a research about investigating the dimension of openness in open AI if people are going to have open AI in the future. So what is the meanings of open to them? So this is a phenomenographic research where we investigate how various stakeholders interpret and perceive the concept of openness in educational AI technologies. Yeah, and we are preparing the ethics approval application, and apart from that, I'm also interested into how the potential of OER to promote and mainstream the global education. There's a lot of aspect of global education and what the role OER can play in promoting that. And that is also a research that I'm collaborated with the other GoGN member. And we also have a proposal submitted to the OEGlobal this year, and we're also very looking forward to hearing from the conference. Yeah, so these are my main open education research projects at the moment. Yeah.
That's plenty. Thank you so much. And also for giving such a thorough overview of GoGN, who have been long, strong participants and such a valuable network itself and community. But they usually, I don't know, how many did they bring to Edmonton, Marcella or Adrian? Attending the conference, it was at least 25 to 30.
I don't know the number, but yes, a big
yeah,
group.
yeah. And we'll just say the word penguins and leave it to everybody's imagination to figure out what the penguins are all about. But so valuable to have that and hear about your research. And we won't bug Adrian to like spill the beans yet, but it'll be out soon as far as the conference proposals. But we look forward to hearing about that research. And also, I've been to the campus in Wagga Wagga. I'll just leave that on the table. And so let's hear from Jen about the work that she's doing at RMIT and what openness looks like from down at the south end of Australia.
So I suppose I can. There's a couple of things that I can talk about, and one, I suppose my favourite thing to talk about is the Australasian Open Educational Practices Special Interest Group. That's our full title, and so as I mentioned before, I'm one of 4 co-conveners of that group, and I just wanted to talk about this first, and then I can mention a few things that we're doing at RMIT as well. And so one of the really big things that, and Katia touched on this as well, around reaching critical mass, I'm just astounded at the interest. Well, maybe astounded, perhaps not quite the right word, but delightfully surprised that we've got nearly 200 members within this group. So primarily Australian. We do have some folk from New Zealand as well, and so we need to credit Adrian with starting that group and leading that for many years before the us 3 interlopers have come in and helped to co-convene. And I suppose that one of the big ways that we engage with those nearly 200 people is with our monthly meetings. So it's a opportunity for us to get together and talk about the big and small issues in relation to open education. So we always have, a planned discussion around often a big issue. And it's a forum for us to be open and frank about the work that we do and what challenges our work and where we need support. And it's also obviously a platform for sharing our successes and a place for people to meet like-minded professionals who are interested in progressing the open education agenda. And so this is, for myself being here now, it's testament that this is what I've got out of this meeting. I've got so many connections around Australia in relation to open education, which informs my work at RMIT, which is really fantastic. So that's our monthly meetings. Another big aspect of the work that we do is publishing a monthly digest. So Ash leads that, the editorial team for the digest. And so I've popped a link in there for you, Alan. And it essentially just to inform the wide community of activities around open education. We also, so Stephen Chang produces and organises a bi-monthly webinar series to keep our community engaged. And we also, this year, we started a research agenda as well. And so I'm in the process of organising a community of practice from interested people across Australia and New Zealand, and our intention is to, progress the open education research agenda, publish in open journals, present at conferences, that kind of thing. Another thing that's been touched on as well as the collaborations that we have with other organisations. So in particular with Kasia and Rani and now Ash at Call. So we've got a forthcoming open book in development down under OER, or down under spelt OER. And so that project is managed by Call, project managed by Call, and it involves a range of OEP SIG members, so authors, editors, reviewers, go-betweens to find other authors. And just one other collaboration that will be starting next week. So Ash and I are delivering the OER Foundations program. So Ash has put a lot of work into upgrading that program for this year, and so we'll be starting that next week, which I'm really looking forward to. And yeah, they're the main things in relation to the OEP SIG. In terms of RMIT, a couple of things. So I lead the open publishing team, and that's been in operation informally for about 4 years, and it became more formal, if you like, a couple of years ago. There is now a team, although that team is dedicated to helping RMIT authors publish open books. We're all librarians and we all have other roles as well. So for example, I'm a teaching and research librarian, so I'm involved in a range of activities across the library. And so one of the, it's not an issue, but looking into the future, how do we think about supporting more development through, dedicated support, funding, people who are only doing open publishing within the library. One last thing I wanted to mention, and people may already know about this. So Anne Lennox was instrumental in leading a 2-year project to develop an open scholarship policy at RMIT, and so that we did have an open access or policies relating to open access. We now have a comprehensive open scholarship policy that includes open education as well as open research, and that's available openly on the internet. That's pretty much from me, Ellen.
Oh, thank you so much. I like, part of me is like saying, okay, what's going on in Australia that you do all this great collaboration? Like what's in the water? And then I think, well, it's librarians, right? Or, but no, it really says something about this community. And maybe it's the thing of distance and resources and having to collaborate. I don't know, but it's just very impressive. The level of collaboration. I think many other regions and countries would be jealous, but that's kind of a ridiculous question to ask. What else is going on of interest? We can come back. Obviously, artificial intelligence, maybe we're tired of hearing about it, but it is such a looming thing that we're grappling with. We've talked about OERs, and we've got publishing going on and research. What else is instrumental and open access in the Australian perspective? For under the umbrella of open.
I might jump in here, and Janet, you might have something to say. It's sort of in the broader picture, but one of the developments happening in the open sphere at the moment is our chief scientist has declared open access as one of the strategies that she would like to pursue during her term, which comes to an end quite soon. But Open Access Australasia, Call, and others have been involved in advising the chief scientist on her open access strategy. And we feel there's quite a lot that needs to change in that strategy. I think her view of open access is perhaps narrower than we would like it to be. But as I said earlier, that's kind of, I think, where we're heading in the collective around that advocacy space and really helping those who hold the policy and the purse strings, helping them to really understand the impact that can happen with OER and open. One of the big things happening in Australia right now is a review of our tertiary education system, the Universities Accord, and the current government is putting in significant funds to restructure our tertiary education system. And one of the things that they're really focusing on is around equity. So we feel that there's a huge potential there to really promote OER, and we all are very familiar here with the the benefits of OER in addressing equity and access issues. But it's kind of the role, I think we feel it's our role to help government understand how open, whether that be open access or OER or open education practice can really address some of those issues around equity and access.
And I think
I guess I would just add to that I think we're all kind of hamstrung by the same lack of a national strategy, national policy, and national infrastructure. It affects all the, every asset of openness. So, that's one of the things that we would really like this chief scientist or the next chief scientist to seriously put on the table, because there is a lot of potential there. And the other thing that comes to mind is, with open educational resources, as with open access, there is this potential to really use it for equity and social inclusion, but there's also the potential for it to just perpetuate existing inequities. So that's something that we always need to be really pay a lot of attention to. And I think one of the real strengths of Australia, and particularly of Aotearoa, is that we have our Indigenous colleagues who can come in and advise us and on this stuff. So I think that may be one of the things that really makes this region stand out internationally, is that we do have a lot of exciting things happening in that Indigenous research space as well. So it's a really good area to be working in from that perspective.
And I think as well, one of the key things that we're experiencing is that there's all this fantastic work that is going on in open, despite the lack of a national awareness at all. And it's kind of one of those things where you realize how much can happen if you take that community approach and bottom up. But in order, I think, to scale up to mature and to mainstream, we are definitely going to need that federal level build. And it's been something for, as Janet will be able to tell you, it's been something for decades that the people have been trying to get on the agenda. And I know, Katya, your work in Creative Commons exactly the same, that we've been trying to get it on the agenda, and we've gotten research on the agenda, as with the chief scientist, but trying to get open education on the federal agenda has been a really big challenge. So whilst we're doing some excellent work on the ground, that's a really big area, and I'm hoping that with the University Accords, we can show that open education is actually a really good way of the government meeting targets that they are setting for the sector and for themselves, but at the same time harnessing something we're already doing. And so I see this as, we've got an opportunity here, and it is a case of how do we advocate. And when we go back to Paul's work, what Katya was speaking about, that there are the next steps around advocacy, I completely agree that that is something to invest in. One thing that I did want to mention as well is that when you look at how far a lot of the community stretches, when Jen was introducing the SIG and the startup from that, the SIG did also start from, it started from a fellowship that Dr. Karina Bosu had. And Karina did an awful lot of the early research in Australia, and was the reason why a lot of the researchers now can lean on her work. She's currently with the Open University and is part of the running of GoGN. So again, it's a small community. We all kind of know each other. But on top of that, what I think, and I hear this every single meeting that we have in the SIG, when you talk to folk about the work that they are doing and why they want to come along to events, Australia is really widely distributed. We have a phrase, the tyranny of distance, and most of our members have commented at least once that they are the only practitioner on their campus, that they are going it alone, that they feel isolated, and they take any opportunity they possibly can to connect with others. So giving focal points like the Core Collective, the Professional Learning, OA Australasia, the SIG, all of these are mechanisms that bring people together. Whenever we talk to people about what is it you most value about openness and about the work that is being done, they always say it's the community, it's meeting people. And fostering those networks, you very quickly start to realize that we start to play 6 degrees of separation between any open practitioner in Australia and any other practitioner in Australia, and increasingly overseas. The last thing I will mention is just the amount of comments that I get, especially from North America, where yes, and I just saw Katya just put in our chat 1 degree of separation. Absolutely. Our colleagues in North America have been really surprised at how many Australians will get up at strange hours of the morning to attend events over there so that they can be a part of that community as well. So it's something, I think, when you come to the conference, this is something you're going to feel. You're going to experience this, and you're going to see how welcoming and warm, and for a lot of us, this is going to be the first time a lot of us have actually been in the same room. For example, I've never met Ash in person, I've never met Jen in person, and I've never met Janet in person either. And in order to meet V in person, I had to go to Canada.
Oh, so well said. So it's so good to hear all this and to hear about this excitement. Everyone, besides all this great collaboration and sense of working together, and so well described by Adrian, given the challenges, the tyranny of distance, why give your best reason, your best case, why people who are thinking about, making the decision to come to the conference, why come, and it can be because of Brisbane or Uluru or even Toowoomba. It can be something to see, or it can be the spirit of this conference. What's something that you think people are really going to get out of coming to this conference? Anybody take on my challenge?
I'd like to take that on. I think quite clearly, just from this conversation, you can feel the energy here. Come to the conference to feel the energy, and if you're feeling like you're flagging a bit because open education can be really tough work, come to the conference and re-energize.
Perfect.
I'll just add there, I always feel energized, even just after one of our ASCILITE OEP SIG meetings. Alan, you alluded to the generosity, I think, of this community. One, we're librarians, but two, I think those who are attracted to the OER community are particularly generous in sharing their resources, but also collaboration and just supporting each other, because as we've heard, it can be fairly lonely. We're not well resourced on different universities. Often, it's just one person working and it's just one part of their work. Yeah, I'd agree. I find working with this crew extremely energizing and inspiring. Yeah. And it will be quite warm in Brisbane at that time of year. And as Marcella knows, it's a really lovely welcoming city. So not only is the OER community very welcoming, but Brisbane and Australia are very warm and welcoming as well.
And yeah, I mean, Adrian got to this point about often people in Australia have to stay up late in the evening, early in the morning to attend. And I think it's time we flip those tables around. And so people are going to hopefully remotely come to Australia. And we're working on ways that people who can't be in Brisbane can come in. But like, not everybody's going to stay up till 3 a.m. to watch a live streaming keynote. And so we've got some things in the works, but I think it's so appropriate that happens. That people should not just be on this North American time schedule. There, I said it. Not that it matters, but it's just a wonderful thing. And
if you want to flip this as well, Alan, where we've been talking about, come to Australia, be part of our community. The other thing that I find really strong with Australian practitioners is we are eager to learn from others. And so everything, I get excited because I've got the behind the scenes view of what proposals are coming through. And I get excited about the opportunity that we have to learn from other people. So I think that people who come and present and share their work, I think you're going to be quite pleasantly surprised at the level of impact that you can have in our region and the potential for us to reuse or repurpose your work. So that would be the flip side of coming as well. I think there's a huge benefit from people. And I do agree, Ash has put something in the comment about meeting the open education stars. The first time I went to an OEGlobal conference, I was incredibly nervous and kept thinking to myself, don't say something stupid, because I described it as walking around with my EndNote library. There were just all of the luminaries were there and just were lovely people. I could just go up and have a chat with them. So that's something we're looking forward to as well.
All right. I think we have a good stage set for this. And again, thank you everyone for being here. Adrian, V, Katya, Ash, Jen, and so good to hear these conversations and learn more about what's going on. And we'll be back next month, hopefully, for a conversation with some of our keynotes. And the months they're kind of counting down, Adrian. We're getting close to November. It's still kind of far out there, but we can see it on the horizon, and just so excited for this opportunity. And thank you everybody again for joining us over some of your lunch hours to be here.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you. It's lovely to meet you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you all in person.
Absolutely.
We learned so much.